The second point that destroyed American politics was the security state. We became a national security state back in 1945, essentially, after World War II, and especially in 1947 with the National Security Act, which established the CIA and the Defense Department and the other institutions of the security state. America has, as everybody knows very well, military bases in 80 countries around the world. Can you imagine, never in history, with even the British Empire, of course, it was a different era, didn't quite have this. And so this is American government, is a military machine all over the world, plus a secret army, the CIA, whose job it is to overthrow governments that are deemed to be inimical to U.S. interests. And the CIA has engaged in probably about 100 regime change operations around the world since 1947. I've seen some of them with my own eyes. Literally, the CIA carrying off heads of government. One was Aristide, who I advised, from Haiti, and they took him away in an unmarked plane and flew him to Central African Republic in broad daylight. And by the way, when they overthrew him, the New York Times wouldn't even run a story about it because this is how the security state operates. It wasn't deemed to be newsworthy that the United States had overthrown a government in our hemisphere. Of course, it had done that repeatedly, but when I called the reporter, she told me that the editor was not interested in the story. Okay, my point is that the government, you can't run a democracy and a security state the same way. Eisenhower told us that on January 17th, 1961, when he said, "Beware the military-industrial complex." Believe me, since then, it has only grown to gargantuan proportions. If you look at this leak 3 days ago of the attack on the Houthis, okay, there are several notable things about it. First, they behave like 14-year-olds, up to and including the emojis. Okay, these are children. Second, as they noted, this has nothing to do with the Houthis. This is to send a message. Third, they applauded when they destroyed a building that supposedly included some target, but it killed 50 civilians. And it was all muscles and American flags. Fourth, this was decided in a completely haphazard way by the White House. Congress had no role. There was no discussion of it. Fifth, the only thing that the politicians find odd about this whole episode, not the bombing of a country in which we are not at war, not the killing of civilians, not the fact that this was, I can't use the right words because they're not proper for polite company, but not the way to do this. They can't figure out that something's wrong. All they care about is that it breached secrecy. The fact that you have secrecy that enables random killings of this sort on a routine basis is what's wrong. We should be applauding the break of the secrecy, but the only thing the Congress and the press itself talk about is the secrecy element. They don't talk about how wrong it is to be bombing people. They don't talk about the fact that the reason for the war in Yemen is that there's no solution to the Palestine issue. No substance, just a war machine. So these, to my mind, are the two fundamental failures of the United States. We don't have a functioning political system. It doesn't address real needs. It enables one person to decide we're not part of the Paris Climate Agreement. It enables one person to break apart the international trading system. This is extraordinary. If you think about it, tariffs, by the way, under the U.S. Constitution, are the responsibility of Congress, because tax authority, going back hundreds of years in British constitutional rule, are in the domain of the Parliament or the House of Commons. That's where Parliament came from, which was to limit the tax authority hundreds of years ago. No congressman is objecting to Trump unilaterally setting tariffs. How is he doing that, by the way? It's completely unconstitutional in substance. He's doing it because we have emergency legislation that allows the President of the United States to declare a national emergency. So the tariffs on China are under a fentanyl emergency. Can you imagine how artificial that is, how bogus that is, how it has nothing to do with the issues at hand, but also how not a single member of Congress stands up and says, you're taking our authority. If we had a functioning Congress, a congressman would stand up and say, this is our responsibility. You cannot appropriate the voice of the people. This is what revolutions are supposed to be about, that the King of England could not set taxes on the colonies. That's how we started. Now we have a mad king who sets taxes day by day, and Congress has no interest in even intervening in that subject. So this is the essential problem. The country works fine on areas where you don't need a government, but it fails on every area where you do. Our infrastructure fails, the inequalities, the environment, the environmental protection, all of it is failing badly because we don't have a functioning government in the United States.